Hi, I'm Hovind Hilton. This is Best Seat in the House. This week with my guest, Sickamore. We're here live from Adorale, which is really a restaurant that we like to celebrate and share a good time at.
It's my favorite restaurant in the whole America.
We're kind of in a little bit of a celebration. Why don't you tell people a little bit about what you got going on?
Well, I just announced that I'll be becoming Senior Vice President of A&R and Creative Director at Interscope Records, you know what I mean?
So making the switch to having your own label, I don't know if you call it a label, having your own label versus working at a label, what's your approach with your own situation?
Well, you gotta wear like two different hats. Interscope is allowing me to help build my company within the company, so you gotta have your executive hat on, which, answering phone calls, you gotta be present at the label, you gotta, have like a direction for the company and be an asset, while at the same time having your startup hat on.
Yeah.
You gotta find overhead, office space, you got employees, you got human resources, and it's just you on a shoestring budget. So it's fun, but you gotta move different. Like an executive, they have to really manage their schedule, do certain things, and a guy who runs a startup is always looking for the next move.
With me being from Brooklyn and knowing you personally, I've been following your career for a long time. But tell the people out here where you got your start at, your road to where you are today.
Well, I got my start doing mixtapes.
Your own mixtapes?
Yep. Like Sickamore branded mixtapes where I would do like best ofs, like a Dr. Dre versus Jermaine Dupri, Mace versus Fabulous.
Very big tape.
Instrumentals, like I would just go and find like the producers and the vinyls, and I'll put instrumentals because instrumentals were hot at the time because of 50 Cent. So every artist in New York City wanted to rap, and then every artist in the world wanted to rap. So that's how I started getting my name out, because I put Sickamore on the mixtape. And I do like regular mixtapes too, like DJ Clue or something like that. And I started doing that when I was 16, 17 years old, and I flipped mixtapes into like a record store in Brooklyn. From the record store in Brooklyn, I started meeting a lot of other connections, and from there I started moving around the city. I didn't know what I was doing, so I would just wake up every single day and tell myself, like, I'm just gonna sell all the mixtapes that I have, and I'm just gonna keep going until I can't go no more. Because I was fresh out of high school. I tried college for a second, maybe for like 2 months. It wasn't for me. I just did the radio. I just had a plan. I didn't really have a plan. I just kept going because it was working, and that was the first time that I was really starting to have some real success, real money on my own, and I just kept flipping it.
So from the mixtapes, after the mixtapes, how do you land your first label gig?
Well, I always try to think to the future, and so when I was 19, when I was 18, I met Just Blaze, who was, a big producer, and I built a relationship with him. And I started talking to him about a label, because at the time, Jay-Z had just put out his last album, the Black Album at the time. And I was on his ass, so I was like, yo, you need to do a label. Like, Kanye West is blowing up. Like, you need to do a label. You need to find an artist. And I think he got tired of me just annoying him, so he said, yo, if you find me an artist, I'll make a label. You know what I mean? I was like, cool. You know what I mean? So I brought him, Saigon was the first artist I brought on when he was a kid from upstate New York. And he had like a little bit of buzz at the time. I got them together. We worked in the studio for like 9 months, and he ended up getting a deal with Atlantic Records. And I wasn't getting paid at the time, but I know how to maneuver. So I was 19 years old, so I knew that was a story. So I started going around saying, I'm Just Blaze at A&R, Fort Knox, da-da-da-da. People started writing about it, so I started getting writing up at MTV, XXL, Source. Every publication was hitting me about it, so I really started getting the name out there. And I just saw my future as an A&R, so I told myself, this is where I'm gonna get out. Like, I'm gonna get out the mixtape game and become an executive, and that was always my plan. From that plan, after Just Blaze and then we got a deal at Atlantic Records, they didn't give me any money off of it. That was like music business 101.
Damn, man.
But that was probably the best thing that could happen to me, because then I just kind of strapped up my boots, figured out again. I met an artist named True Life. I got him a deal with Rockefeller 5 months later, and at that point, that's when I met my mentor. I met my mentor, hip hop, and he offered me a job at Atlantic Records. So I ended up back working with Saigon. So it kind of came full circle. I went from like working on their side to working on the label side, which was kind of cool. And I was like a little bit of instant karma.
You're one of the youngest, hottest in the game. Name was all over the place. Your work is matching up with the name. And then you start a company called The Famous Firm. Tell us a little bit about The Famous Firm. You had a bunch of young upstarts working with you there.
Well, working in corporate America at 21 years old, like, They gave me like a job, a director job, an assistant, a corporate card. But that was like my first real job, and you know, corporate America is hard for anybody, especially when you like most people at 21 were interns. You know, they didn't have real gigs. So there's a lot of parts of the job in corporate that you got to figure out. There's like a political side, there's a work side, there's a culture of the company, and I didn't really understand it, but I saw like a lot of holes, you know, and I would just try to like get things done. But I guess I wouldn't do, in retrospect, I wouldn't do things the way they wanted me to do things, like send an email, CC everybody, da-da-da-da-da. So I just got frustrated with the major label system about getting stuff done. So through it, I decided to start a company called The Famous Firm. That's an artist development firm to help develop artists. And you know, I worked with a lot of people, you know, we worked together in that, and a lot of other young kids. And the vision of the company was like a company on the average age was about 24 years old. And we were going to develop for the market that we knew because we were the target demographic. You know, we started kicking up dust. I resigned from Atlantic Records. I took on a Famous Firm for a time. My friend Joey Manda and Todd Moskowitz let me work out of their office. And it was really cool because we had like, you ended up having like a lot of clients. So, you know, we had Rich Hill, Tommy Hilfiger's son as a client. We had Nicki Minaj as a client really early in her career. And it was just cool, like, you know, it's like I was back in startup mode, like I was talking about earlier, you know, every day was a new challenge. We had, at the peak of it, we ended up having 13 reps all across the country, including one in London, and just doing different business. And it was a real cool time. It was very exciting. And it was like, I felt like I was back doing mixtapes. Like every day was a new challenge.
And a lot of those reps went on to go start their own companies and their own business.
Yeah, you know, you see, best seat in the house right here, you know what I mean, an accomplished manager, which I'm so proud of it, you know what I mean? My boy Josh Pease went out and got an artist signed to Epic Records, Casey Veggies. And a lot of the guys from The Famous Firm are just doing really, really, really well. That's been the best, because a lot of people come back to me and be like, yo, man, like, in retrospect, they come back and say, yo, that Famous Firm was so dope, man. I learned a lot from there, you know? I always feel like my place on earth is to help people. You know, like I'm supposed to help people get to the next level.
I feel like a lot of big name artists you're associated with, worked with, helped get to a certain point. And a lot of people really don't know that, or they aren't privy to, like you said, you work with Nicki, you managed Nicki early in the game. What other artists are you associated with that people might not know or link to Sickamore?
I don't know, I worked with Jeremiah.
Very
a
big,
lot,
huh?
you know, and we did like Don't Tell Him together, and I worked a lot of his Planes, a lot of those records when I first got to Def Jam. Lil Durk, I worked with a lot. You know, Winter Gordon was she's Diana Gordon now. She writing some of the biggest songs for Beyonce, including Becky with the good hair. And you know, people know me mostly for YG and Travis Scott now.
Yeah, that's dope, man.
I don't really like, you know what it is though, is until YG and Travis Scott, I didn't like toting that I worked with the other people, because like with Nicki, she ended up blowing up big like after. Oh, she was hot, but she ended up blowing up like Nicki Minaj after. So I looked at the Nicki thing almost like a loss for a long time, you know?
I think everything's a chain in life. Like, you know, you're connected to it and it went this way. It wouldn't have went maybe this way without you pushing this way. So whether you're right before the blow up or right after or during, like you played a part in her success somehow.
Yeah, it's tough when you're going that way though. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't have a crystal ball. So, you know, but it made me go harder. You know, it made me feel like I was on the right track always. You know, it always made me feel like when I saw her success, I was like, okay, cool, I know what I'm doing. And that helped me like really trust my taste and go with my gut. But at the time, though, it was tough. It was like you really had to go through, because, you know, I had such a quick start. I was 16, 17 years old, talking to Mike, you know, who owns a Dorley, and he had said something like that earlier. It's like, it's tough to peak early in life. And it's really tough when you're like that person who felt like you peaked. You know, because you're like 25 years old, you have the whole life ahead of you, but you feel like you missed your shot, and you have to fight through that. You have to do a lot of humbling of yourself. You have to eat a lot of shit on the way back up. But you never really lose that confidence. You know what you're capable of, you know, but at the same time, it's like you gotta just work your way there, you know, and because things happen for you so fast at the beginning, sometimes people can't do the steps they had to do the first time to get there. I came up with a plan one day, because one time I was with my ex-girlfriend, and we were like book shopping, and I wanted to get these books. And she's like, man, you got too many books already. Don't give me books. And I didn't have the money for the books, so I gave me like $60, $70 to my name. Next day I went to the city, and I was like, I bought like a notepad in Chinatown, and I just wrote on a piece of paper like a 5-year plan. And I was like, I'm gonna create like the ultimate artist development company. I'm gonna become a great A&R, and I'm gonna become the ultimate scout, and I'm gonna just stick with this plan for like 5 years. I was able to become more patient at that point, you know what I mean? Because it was a long-term vision. So even when stuff was tough, I was like, okay, cool, we're in year 1, we're in year 2, you know? And that's when we started doing the Famous Factory, me and you in Brooklyn, and started working with all those artists from like Currency to Dom Kennedy to Nipsey Hussle, and I started blowing up. And that was like the first time I saw like, okay, cool, I see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I just kept that mentality that it's a longer vision from there. That way, you know, like how Obama says, never get too high, never get too low.
Yeah. Expand a little bit on the Famous Factory, because that's also something that me and you did together in New York City with Double XL, where it was kind of like a concert series. A lot of people might have been to that and didn't know you were behind that.
Well, the idea behind the Famous Factory was I was doing all this research on new artists because the internet starting to affect the way people discovered artists at the time. Try to come up with like an algorithm to book artists. So like the strategy was to have like a hipster artist, like a street artist, you know what I mean, like a local artist, and just like combine them all so you get a brand new crowd. And then promote it to like the downtown crowd and bring it to Brooklyn so it'll be a little more pure and a lot less industry. So what you end up happening was having these really great organic shows that were groundbreaking at the time, you know, and people still talk about up to this day.
To this day, people stop me on the street like, oh, you gotta do the Famous Factory, you gotta bring it back.
You know, it was just a mess, because a lot of them didn't have like booking agents at the time, and you would just have these kids, and it was 16 and older. We really stressed that the kids could get in, and you just find like a new wave, you know, and it was because Williamsburg wasn't even really hot in the hip hop community yet.
Nope.
You know, it was still a fresh new thing, so it was an experience that people had. And, you know, we only did a few shows, we only did like 4 or 5 shows, but those 4 or 5 shows meant everything. And that network, based on those 4 or 5 shows, was like the beginning of like, I feel like the second half of my career.
You mentioned book shopping earlier. I know you're one of the people that always, if nobody else, you'll be like, hey, Hov, you should read this book. This book is really a good motivational book, or this book helped me through certain periods in my life. What are some books that you can give a viewer to maybe help him through or motivate him through whatever he's going through?
It's like, I got like different categories of books. You know, recently, I feel like what the success I've started to have in the last few years is kind of based in spirituality. Because I'm not really a religious person. My mom, we used to go to church like Sunday, Tuesday, and Friday every day, so it kind of turned me off to just going to church. But I found like another level of faith through like spiritual books. So like, you know, like it's like the Celestine Prophecy, like Power Now, like books like that kind of give me like a base, the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. And then like business-wise, this book called The War of Art by Steven Pressfield, it really helped me try to become like a professional, you know. And then like just a lot of biographies really helped, like how Malcolm X kind of reinvented himself in the autobiography of Malcolm X. That was always something that interested me. Like I could live a whole life through it, like, because you know you identify yourself through what you were born at. Like if you're born in Brooklyn, you're born here, like you got to do certain things. I got to talk like this. I got to wear that. I got to do this. That was the first time it really showed like a reinvention of yourself. Like you could have like almost like a self-crucifixion. Like Sickamore is something that I created, and I could just like I could live through it. Yeah. So the Malcolm X kind of really helped me through that. So those books can kind of like set me on the path. But I look at everything like the Matrix. That's why I like books. It's like if I have a problem, I was like, oh, there's a book about this, and I'll just go read it. And then like, okay, cool. Then I have a problem. And I always had a complex not going to college. You know, people would have one up on me in the street. So what I would do is I would just spend all my time in Barnes and Nobles, and I would just read everything. And then that ended up helping me, give me my confidence and balance. I knew what I was talking about. To the point where like when I worked for L.A. Reid, he thought I was like, I had a master's degree or something.
There's a lot of people who are almost embarrassed to show their smarts because it kind of got like, oh, you read books, but now I'm starting to see like the young kids, you go on Barnes and Nobles, and there's a bunch of kids in there reading books, and that's dope. Do you have any aspiration of writing your own book? 'Cause I feel like you could write one at this point.
Yeah, I got an idea. I like the way that people do podcasts and small books and tweets and turn them into books. Yeah. So like, I really have aspirations to do photography books. I have aspirations to do like, I got this podcast idea that after a few podcasts, I want to turn that into a book. You know, that way you can have a built-in audience of your book, and then you can sell it kind of like a Humans in New York kind of thing.
Got it.
So yeah, I feel like when it's all said and done, there's a guy named Tinker. He's like I forgot his last name, but he's a famous Nike designer, right? And we went up to Portland the other day with Travis to go do a show. And we met him, and he said something that was really groundbreaking. I'm gonna misquote it here, but I'm gonna say it anyway. He's like, I'm a product of my imagination, not a product of my environment, you know? And I was like, yeah, that's right. You know, so it's just like now it's just kind of like, what you invent. You know, like I remember I just picked up a camera, like really for real, 3.5 years ago. But now I'm getting offers to do galleries, it's like different museums, different places. Like, hey, do you want to do this show in New Jersey? Do you want to do a show in Toronto? Do you want to show this? That's crazy to me. Or like I got this movie idea that I'm gonna do a limited edition book. And I had like a real casting with girls all over Hollywood, that really popping girls, and they really want to be a part of it artistically. So it's just like at this point, it's just like, what can you think of? Like when it's all said and done, I want to do books, I want to do films, I want to do real estate, I want to do politics. Cause it's just like I feel like you could do it all because it's almost over, man. You know what I mean? You think back twice and you can't do anything anymore. So I'm trying to do it all.
You spoke a little bit about your love for photography. This year you had an art gallery down in Miami and you sold out all the pieces. Speak to me about your love for art, your love for photography, and your style of photography.
I always like photography, and then I always like taking pictures. So I really got my composition from doing Polaroids. And I started studying like different people. Like it would be funny that the person who got me into photography the most wasn't even really a photographer. It was Sammy Davis Jr. So Sammy Davis Jr. had a lot of access, so he took photos. And he took photos like Marilyn Monroe, Frank Sinatra, all these people. And they would get the best photos. He would get great photos of them that no one else would see because they trusted Sammy with a camera. So a lot of times people think it's about composition or something else about a camera, but a lot of times it's about trust. Like, you know, the person with the camera is not going to make you look stupid, or you just like the person who's taking your photo. Yeah. So a lot of times you look back at your favorite photos, the photos that your family members took, or somebody that you really love, because your reflection is really going to be based on that. So even like big models and stuff, their best photos, the biggest photographers in the world, people can make the models laugh and smile because they have to get the best out of them. So I figured I'm going to be all these cool places, and it's like my second shot. You know what I mean? Like I'm really having a renaissance. I don't take any of this for granted anymore. You know, like the first time around when I was doing mixtapes, I took a lot of it for granted. And then when you're sitting there broke, thinking that you're gonna be out the game, you know, you get back up. Everything, you don't take anything for granted. You know, so the photography is kind of like proof. Like, you know, I don't want to have to tell stories. I want people to show like this was my life. I want to show like my kids and my grandkids like my whole life through my point of view. I want to look through the books and books of years. Like this is what, you know, this is what your granddad was doing. It was lit.
it was super lit. You gotta show them Trinidad.
Everything.
That's dope. So you're on a desert island and you could bring 3 albums with you.
3 albums with me.
Any genre, any artist.
I would bring The Blueprint by Jay-Z because it's just like, it gets me hyped up. You start talking about like, it get me motivated, you know what I mean? I'd bring the best of Frank Sinatra just because I'm on an island and it's like chill. And he has like a lot of different zones he could hit, you know what I mean? So if I was sad, I could be sad. If I was chilling, I could be chilling, you know what I mean? If I find like a little ball that I started talking to, I could just do that. And I don't know. I've been getting into jazz recently. So I'll probably just pick like maybe like Miles Davis Blue. Okay. That way I could just not have to listen to words sometimes. I could just kind of zone out.
3 books that you could take with you.
3 books I could take with me. The seven Spiritual Laws of Success, because it kind of gives you like a step-by-step way to do things. I would take Elon Musk's book because I haven't read it yet. And you always have to have a book that you haven't read around. And I feel like if I read that, maybe I'll figure out how to get off the island.
All right, I'm gonna get you out of here with this. What's some of the worst advice you've ever been given?
What's some of the worst advice that I've ever been given? My first manager.
Not me.
No, my first manager when I was like 18, we got in an argument, and he was like, "Stop reading all those fucking books. That shit ain't gonna get you nowhere reading the fucking books. I'm reading those dumbass books." I seen him like 3 years ago on the train in his uniform, his police uniform, and at the time he was like, you know, he was like a poppin' manager. He's like, "You don't tell anybody I'm wearing this. Don't tell anybody." Like, you know what I mean? Like he was almost ashamed. And I just showed like, I was like, oh yes, you should have read some more books.
Read some more books. Yeah. What's the best advice you ever got?
What's the best advice I ever got? The best advice I ever got, being a talent, being like, now when I say talent, I don't mean like singing and dancing on stage, but I mean like just trusting your gut. You know what I mean? Like just like not being afraid to like it's like you can win or you could like win big. You know what I'm saying? Like not afraid to just like take shots. And I think he gave me that advice, and it just, because a lot of this shit's all mental, man. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like most of the stuff that's holding us back is like really in our head. the challenge I face every day to day is nothing to do with the outside world. It's all internal. And if I could just imagine it, you know what I mean? Like I joke around with my friend, Nedic, and I always tell him like, you gotta be like Puffy in '98 when he started salsa dancing J-Lo in the Arabian desert. You know what I mean? It's just like he shot a music video doing that. I can imagine how crazy everybody looked at him at the label, like, yo, I wanna go shoot a movie, I'm gonna shoot in the desert, J-Lo's gonna be an Arabian princess, Wyclef's gonna try to poison the food. They're probably looking at him like he was nuts, but his imagination was just that crazy at the time. Yeah. So I'm just trying to get to the point where I could like salsa dance J-Lo in the Arabian desert too, you know?
I think that's something we all aspire to do at some point, some type of dancing with J-Lo. What still inspires you at this point? You came into the music business, early age, you accomplished so much. You had setbacks, you got back on track. What makes you get up every morning out your bed and say, yo, I still want to do this?
Well, it's the goals. You know, remember I had that 5-year goal I had when YG's album came out and it was a success and it was the #1 rap album. And that was like the first project I was a part of. That gave me a lot of confidence and I was at the end of the 5 years. So then I came up with a 20-year plan. I was like, yeah, I got to come up with bigger goals. So like I'm in year 3 or year 4 maybe of a 20-year plan, and like I just thought of like what the biggest goal, let's take the biggest goal I can think of, right? And that's what I do. So like the stuff right now, it's not really phasing me because I know what a championship looks like. So like right now, it's just, to me, it's just like, it's all a process. Like I'm enjoying it now, but this is not the end. A lot of times people, I really believe people get everything they want in life. You just gotta be careful what you want, you know, like people just sometimes, you know, like crackheads really just want drugs at a certain time, or they just really want certain girls and they'll chase a girl into the gutter, you know what I mean? So you gotta just think about what you want, because everybody kind of gets what they want. You gotta think about what that comes with. So like the goal that I hit, I think I'm probably about 15 to 20% there. And I just know, I know what it looks like, I know what it feels like, and I just color it in every day. Like every day I just add to that final goal. So like I know when I get there, I'm a stop. Like I read that in 48 Laws of Power. It said know when you won.
Yeah, no one is enough is enough.
By the time I'm 50, I'm gonna hit it, and that's I'm cool, and I'm gonna go teach somewhere.
That's dope. Appreciate it. Sickamore, Cathedral Records, Interscope Records.
Best seat in the house.